Hello and welcome to my Fire Emblem Engage engraving tier list. So, I'm going to be ranking the engravings based on how good they are. Some engravings have pretty specific use cases, others have more general use and are always good. So, we're going to be ranking them from S to D tier. I actually did create this. If you want to use this for your own content, if you're another YouTuber or something, go to tierlist.com and search this, and you should be able to find it. I made it because there wasn't one, so enjoy. Okay, so usually I do the presentation mode on TierMaker, but TierMaker wants permission to use my Twitter to actively change who I follow and to make posts and delete posts on my behalf, and that's very invasive, so no thank you to that. So we're using tierlist.com. All right, fantastic. Okay, so let's start in order. Some of these are kind of out of order. All right, so the first engraving is Marth, Beginnings. So this gives you might +1, hit +10, crit +10, avoid and dodge +5. So this is one of the few engravings that has no downside at all. S tier. Easily one of the best engravings. You get damage, you get hit, you get crit, and you get a little bit of an avoid and dodge. There's literally no downside. It's good on literally anything. If you want to deal damage, it's good. So it's pretty strong. All right, the next one is Sigurd. I have the list off to the side just so I have the exact numbers. This one, I would say, is also S tier. So what it does, might +1, weight -1, avoid +20. So this is another one where it's just pure upside. There is no downside. Reducing weight is something you always want to do. Increasing avoid is always useful. Increasing damage is always useful. Zero downside. Easy S tiers. Next is Celica. So Celica gives you might -1, weight -1, and dodge +50. So essentially it makes the weapon lighter and deals slightly less damage, but it also increases crit resistance. I think this one is potentially S tier. I'd say it's at least an A. I used this on a steel spear, and it helped bring the weight down so that I could double with it. So it is good, and crit avoid is useful. So being able to completely negate crits, very few enemies have over 20% crit rate on you, and getting +50 dodge pretty much negates crits. I'd say it's an easy A tier, potentially S tier. Some of these are DLC, but I'm going to go in order in terms of the actual game. Okay, next is Micaiah, so that's this one. So you get -3 might, -1 weight, +40 avoid, +20 dodge. So this will really nerf your damage. It also reduces weight, which is always nice. But -3 might is very serious in Maddening mode. Like, very few weapons can have this on them and remain viable because it's just such a huge reduction in damage. However, the +40 avoid is massive, and you can always throw this on your Dancer's weapon. So I would say at minimum it's A tier because your Dancer's not going to be attacking things, so who cares if you lose might? You just now have +40 avoid. So if your Dancer ever gets attacked, the good luck hitting him. Alternatively, you can throw this on like a heavy axe that has very high damage. You want to throw it on a weapon with very high damage, or you want to throw it on a weapon whose sole purpose is dodge tanking. So if you want to increase the potential for dodging, this is good for that, and it could potentially put it into S tier for dodge tanking builds. But it's pretty solid. You can use it in a few different use cases. All right, next is Roy. So Roy's, I would say Roy's has a specific use case. I would put it in A tier. It gives you more damage. It gives you +2 might, but it also gives you +8 weight and -30 avoid. So you get +2 damage at the cost of 8 increased weight and the loss of 30 avoid. So you're easier to hit, so you're less dodgy, and your weapon's very heavy. This is good on weapons that can't double. This is good on units who have terrible avoid. So you can throw, or this is good on things that aren't going to get hit. So if you have like some sages or some mage knights or something who are using, Thunder, El Thunder, Thoron, and that's not going to double anyways, you can use this, and it's just pure upside. Same thing with like heavy weapons, like great weapons. You can use this on those as well, and there's really no downside to doing so. It's just because they can't double. Now it is possible that the increased weight can cause you to get doubled if you're at a speed threshold where the enemy would double you or not. But generally, it's good on like sniping weapons and heavy hitting weapons. You can throw it on faster weapons, but the increased weight of 8 is really going to cost most units, and it's going to prevent you from doubling and also cause you to get doubled yourself more often than not. Very few units are going to be +8 speed on Maddening mode, unless you find some kind of weird exploit or something. So it's still good though. It's still useful for like sniping weapons. All right, Leafs. So this one, I actually like this one. I think this is, so this is +1 damage, +20 hit, +1 weight, +10 avoid. Honestly, I think this one's S tier. It does add 1 weight, but it gives you 1 damage at the cost of 1 weight, and it gives you more hit. So this is good on pretty much any axe. This is good on brave weapons because they're already heavy anyways. It's good on a bunch of different things. Increasing hit rate. It also gives you a little bit of avoid. You're basically getting 1 damage, 20 hit, and 10 avoid for the cost of 1 weight, and that's worth it. That's really good. I run this on, I think, a silver spear. I'm sorry, a steel spear, and it's very strong. Or no, I run this on something else. I ran these two on a steel spear in my second run, Maddening run, and then I ran this on the main steel sword I was using. This one I think I either used on an axe, or no, I used this on a brave lance. That's right. I used this on Chimera's brave lance, and it just made it so she never missed. And if you build her correctly, she gets enough build that +1 weight isn't going to make or break her build. And she did fine and doubled things consistently for the most part, except for like extremely fast enemies with a brave lance. So even on a brave lance, this thing is good. On any brave weapon, this is good. It could be good on axes. There's a lot of use cases here. +1 weight isn't going to make or break you. That's basically like losing 1 speed. That's not that bad. You can also throw it on daggers. So, get more hit rate, get more damage, get more avoid on your thieves. Kind of works together because daggers are very light. Some daggers are exceptionally light, so +1 weight on daggers that your unit already has higher build than the weight of the dagger. It's not going to matter. It's just pure upside, so easy S tier. All right, Lucina. Awakening. -1 might, +30 hit, -1 weight, +30 avoid. So this one, I would say, is either high A or low S. This is good to throw on an axe. This is good for a lot of use cases. This is really good on axes. I would say it's like highest A maybe. This one's great on like tomahawks or things that just need accuracy. This is like your standard axe along with leaf. I guess it is leaf. I always want to say leaf, but it is leaf. Along with leaf's engraving. I always use this on like a tomahawk, but I've only done 2 runs, so you can throw it on any axe. Like any axe will benefit from this. Losing 1 point of might isn't going to make or break an axe unit. Most axe units have high enough strength that won't matter at all. Reducing the weight is nice. So you lose a 1 point of damage, but you also reduce the weight. So probably a bad thing to put on brave weapons because losing might on brave weapons is generally terrible. And you want to either you can like you probably could run Roy on a brave weapon because it's guaranteed to double in the first hit if you're on a low speed unit, so that could bump it up potentially. But this one is really good for the accuracy, and the avoid is nice too. It allows units who would never avoid things have some dodge rate, and it also takes inconsistent axe units and makes them very reliable hitters, which is the #1 problem with axes is hitting reliably. So pretty easy A tier, potentially even S. Next we have Lin. So this one, -3 might, +40 hit, +20 crit, and -2 weight. This one I would say is like A tier, like middle of A tier. It's good. You do lose a lot of might. This is another axe one, I would say. It also reduces the weight by a lot. It's either for axe weapons or for crit weapons. And it's for crit weapons whose might is reasonably high. So maybe like a killer lance, a killer axe, something like that. It still is good, but losing 3 damage is a big deal. But you do also lose 2 weight. So I'd say this is more geared towards axes and like crit weapons. Potentially things like killer sword. Losing 3 might does suck, but getting +20 crit is pretty strong. All right, then next we have Ike. So this one is similar to Roy. So here's Ike's. This one's a little crazy, to be honest. +3 might, which is good, but then +15 weight. So you're guaranteeing that if a unit's getting hit with this on, they're gonna get doubled by an enemy. Honestly, I want to put it in B, but I could see how it could be good. I'm gonna put it in B because it's so situational. At least with Roy, like you gain 8 weight, which is terrible, but at least it's a little bit more manageable. So like if you get attacked, it's not nearly as bad. The +3 might is decent. It's not bad. Arguably, they both kind of fill a similar role. I do personally run this, and I run it on a heavy weapon, and it's decent. But the increased weight guarantees that if you accidentally leave a unit out of position and gets attacked, it will get doubled and probably killed in Maddening. The same is true for this to some degree, but 8 weight is, the threshold's not as crazy or extreme. And this one does make you more likely to get hit, but I don't really rely on dodge tanking unless it's on a unit who's built for that. I would say it's like B, maybe A. It could go up depending on your use case. All right, next is Byleth. So this one, I would say this one's A. You get +30 hit, +10 crit, +2 weight, but you also get +10 avoid and +30 dodge. So you basically nullify enemy crits. You get a little bit of avoid. You gain weight, but you gain a lot of accuracy and you gain some crit. This one's really good on axes, especially or units who are not going to double anyways, so the increased weight doesn't matter. It fixes axe issues of accuracy, and overall is pretty decent. It's not really good on anything else. Like I wouldn't put this on a sword or a spear unless it's a unit with high build who can handle the extra weight. But it basically just makes a weapon super consistent. It makes you more or less immune to crits, gives you some avoid, and it gives you a little bit of crit yourself. So, all right, so let's go down to the next ones. All right, now we have Corrin, which is this one. The DLC ones, I don't have the DLC, but I'll evaluate them based on how they could be useful. All right, so Corrin, -2 might, +30 crit, +10 avoid, +30 dodge. I would say this is an easy A tier. I'd put it like middle of A tier. It's obvious what it's supposed to be for. Crit builds, +30 crit. It also gives you crit avoid and some dodge, and you lose some base damage. So this definitely could be good. Definitely could be viable. Losing might depends on the weapon. I would say if the unit has high enough strength or magic and they have good crit on the weapon they're using, losing the might for 30 crit is worth it. Certain weapon types I wouldn't put this on. It might still be viable on sword, like Killer Sword, if you just upgrade it enough, and Wadao, if you just upgrade it enough. Just depends on how good the base damage is and how strong the unit is in question. So it could even be used on swords. On daggers, you could probably run it on certain daggers. I mean, you could probably run it on silver daggers that are upgraded. Steel daggers, you could probably run it on those if they were like +4 to +5. But anything lower than that, and you're starting to like get into your own damage too much. But if you have the crit rate and you have the base strength, you could get away with it on almost anything. So easy A tier. Depends. Like it's contingent on using crit builds. These are just universally good. So that's what S tier is. It's just It's like almost always good, and there's no downside. Okay, Erica. This one is not bad. I literally never use this one, but this could be good. I would put this probably in like high, like above Ike. I would say B tier. So you get 40 hit, good. 20 crit, good. -20 avoid. That's not the worst thing, but here's the thing I don't like. -20 dodge. So you're giving enemies +20 crit against you. So this one can be good because it's another crit archetype. It doesn't mess with your damage, but the downside is it's riskier to run. So if you get focused, you're more likely to get crit. So unless you have insane positioning and know all the like reinforcement spawns and you're used to running a glass cannon, this basically turns any unit into a crit machine that's very accurate / glass cannon. So I don't run it personally. I probably will on my third Maddening run, just to mess around with it. It's not bad. It's just that I don't like giving enemies +20 crit against me. So it's just I would just hate to have to constantly like pulse because I'm like not paying attention for one turn, like an hour and a half into some mission or something, and then some dude just keeps getting one shot out of the blue. That would just be irritating for me personally. All right, next we have Leers. So This one, -1 might, +20 hit, +20 crit, -1 weight, +20 avoid, and +20 dodge. So this one, you're basically losing 1 damage, and in exchange for losing 1 damage, you get +20 hit, crit, avoid, dodge, and -1 weight. I would say this is S tier, to be honest. There's no losing 1 point of damage for basically negating all enemy crits, giving you more avoid, giving you more crit, giving you more hit, and losing 1 weight. That's a massive upside. Like, especially if you're on, like some kind of silver weapon or like a steel +3 or a steel +5. For axes, I don't even recommend upgrading steel +5. You should just wait until you get a silver, to be honest, because the steel just isn't really that good in my opinion. But because like the upside of steel is that it has reduced weight. Maybe killer axe is the way to go on axes. To be honest, like killer axe and pole axe, I think that might be the way to go, and maybe hammer if you just fix its accuracy issues, because it seems to be the case that with axes you just want to hit really hard, right? Or you just want to get a crit. So steel isn't as good because like steel is good on sword and lance because of the doubling aspect, whereas steel axe not likely to be doubling anything. Okay. So the DLC ones now. So this is Edelgard. So +1 might, +1 hit, +10 crit. Or I'm sorry, +10 hit, +10 crit, +10 avoid, +1 weight. This one is really good. I'd put this in S. +1 might at the cost of 1 weight is not bad. That's really good for brave weapons because Leaf is basically that, except he has, instead of 10 crit, he has 10 hit, or I'm sorry, 20 hit. This one gives you crit and hit split up. So it's basically like Leaf's, but slightly different, and then it gets you +10 crit. Crit really does matter in this game. Like if you have a 30% crit rate and you double something, your chances of critting are actually closer to like 50%, like 50-50, like just scoring a single crit out of 2 hits. So even at 30% crit rate, if you double or if you quad on brave weapons, you actually have a pretty good crit rate. So even at like the lower end, it's still viable and still matters. But if you can get to like 40 to 50 crit rate or higher, that's when things start getting crazy, and you add might on top of that. So if you throw this on like a killer axe or something, it just makes it a little bit more accurate. It gives you some avoid, gives you crit, gives you damage. It gives you 1 weight, but that's really not that big of a downside, to be honest. All right, next we have Tiki. So this is +2 might. This one's really good. Oh my god, this is S tier. Are you kidding me? I'll put it like mid S tier. +2 might at the cost of -20 avoid, -20 dodge. If you use this optimally, there's no downside here. It's just +2 damage with no increase in weight. That's absolutely crazy. Now, if you're on a unit with high dodge, so you don't have to worry about the crits. If you're on a unit with high avoid, it doesn't matter. But if you're just asymmetrically hitting things where they're not counterattacking, this is literally pure upside, and you're just constantly dealing +2 damage, which is huge. All right, so next is Hector. This one, let's try to get it to go over here. All right, this one gives you +3 might, +3 weight. That's not bad, but then -30 avoid, -30 dodge. So then you're +30 incoming crit rate. Honestly, I'm going to put this one in A, like middle of A. The damage is nice. The weight pushes it down because increasing weight kind of hurts. And then the +30 incoming crit kind of pushes it down. Now, the reason I rate Tiki higher is because it doesn't have any weight on it. So it's basically Hector, but with 1 less point of damage, a little bit less dodge and avoid penalty, and 0 weight penalty. That's why it's so good. Because getting extra damage from an engraving usually costs you weight unless it's one of the S tier ones. And even then, some of them still cost you weight. But this one does not. Like Tiki does not. Hector does cost you some weight, but it could still be really good. You just have to manage the fact that you're taking more crits now. And that is, I know it doesn't seem like a big deal. Who cares? It's +30 incoming crit. But you say that now, but then when an enemy kills you with a crit out of the blue, you're going to be like, what the hell? So that's why I'm evaluating this way, unless you have like some insanely good tactic. Now, on certain units that the crits don't matter, like if you're on a tank who's taking basically no damage, then probably fine. Or if you're on a bondage shield strategy, that negates it. But I'm just assuming average play, like you're not going out of your way to run very specific team comps. This is just using this in general. and you're going to have to watch out for incoming crits more on most units. Even tanks have to worry about getting like one rounded by faster enemies with heavy damage on Maddening, like endgame. All right, Soren. +2 might. They really just like these free might ones. +2 might, -10 avoid, -20 dodge. This is going to S tier. This is crazy. There's no weight. Like that. The thing is, Hector would be an S if it wasn't for the weight. But the fact that you can do so here's the thing. -10 avoid isn't the worst thing. If you can get an extremely fast unit, you innately get tons of avoid. So if you can just dodge the hit to begin with and just run like some kind of avoid tank build, you could throw this on brave weapons, you could attack enemies when they can't counterattack. There's a lot of options. But because of it doesn't increase the weight, it becomes better. Like mages can use it and attack enemies who can't counterattack. You can use Thyrsus and use it. With Hector, you can use it with Thyrsus, but you reduce your doubling chance by increasing the weight. These weightless ones are absolutely insane. Now, you still have to watch out for incoming crit, but pretty huge upside. All right, then finally we have Camilla. Might +1, crit +30, weight +1, avoid and dodge -20. So you get crit, you get damage, you lose a weight, like you gain an extra point of weight working against you. So the cost of getting 30 crit and 1 damage, like +1 more might, is -20 avoid, dodge, and 1 weight. This one, honestly, is pretty good. It's basically, it doesn't increase your accuracy, but if you're running this on a unit who's already accurate, it's pretty solid. You still have to contend with the increased incoming stuff. Now, I like this one more than Erica because you get 10 more crit and you get more damage, but you do get a weight. So honestly, I'm going to put it in A tier. I think that's fair, like middle of A tier. Because it's like you get the crit, you get the damage. Now, it reduces the avoid and the dodge. Depends on the unit who's running it. I could see this being good on a thief who has over like insanely high dodge, so that reducing the avoid actually helps you, so enemies will attack you. But then if you do get hit, you have a decent chance that hit turns into a lethal blow. So depends on the build you're running, but I would say it's at least A tier. I don't think there's really C or D tier engravings. All of them seem pretty good and have their use case. You could argue that Ike could move up. You could argue Erica could move up. I could see it, and I would understand why. If you agree or disagree with any of these, let me know why. I'm just curious because, obviously perception of these will change depending on the builds you run, the units you use. So this isn't like set in stone. This is just after 2 Maddening runs. These are my opinions of these. I don't think any of these engravings are so bad they belong in C or D tier. And honestly, most of them are probably around A tier, and some of them are just clearly pure upside. Like this one might be in a tier of its own because it literally is pure upside. Well, actually, I'm sorry. Both of these are just literally pure upside. Sigurd's is insane. +1 damage, -1 weight, +20 avoid. That is pure upside. There's no downside at all. Same thing with Marth. You just get damage, hit, crit, avoid, and dodge. There's no negative stat. There's no increased weight or anything. So these two are top tier. These are the absolute best, in my opinion. And then some of the DLC ones like Tiki. Tiki is good because it's just +2 damage, and as long as the unit's not getting hit, it doesn't matter. And it doesn't increase weight. That's why I put an S tier. For Soren, same thing. It doesn't increases damage without increasing weight. So if you're like, running Alchrist on a Brave Bow, and he's not getting hit, like my Alchrist never got hit once. So if he's on a Brave Bow, now he's +2 might on that Brave Bow. When his Luna doesn't proc, his average damage is higher. And when his Luna does proc, because his average damage is higher, when he penetrates armor, it will be scaled up even more because of the increased might. So pretty huge upside on a lot of these. If something gives you damage without weight increase, that's pure upside in this game, especially on fast units who can double consistently. Because a lot of times, the difference between doubling comes down to a few points of speed, which can be caused by weight, so like weapon weight. So one of the reasons why I recommend against axes that double or trying to double axes is because it's hard to get a unit with high enough speed and build to handle an axe to deal with its weight. But with spears and swords and daggers and bows, you can get those weights down. And also fists. I haven't used fists enough, but fists have low weight generally, so you could double and quad with those pretty easily. But that's pretty much it for this one. Definitely like and subscribe if you found this useful. Pretty much every engraving is useful. There isn't an engraving that doesn't have a purpose. Either it increases your crit, it increases your damage, makes you a dodge tank, it reduces weight, increases might. Like there's all these different properties. All these different properties of engravings, and certain engravings are better on certain certain weapon types, but some are also good on every weapon. Like these two, there's no downside to running these on anything. Like these are literally just pure upside, and then the other ones there's like trade-offs. So it's a pretty good system. I think it's pretty solid, pretty interesting. It adds a lot of replay value to the game because generally when you commit to certain engravings on certain units, you don't move them around. You can move them around for free. Well, not for free, it costs you bond fragments, but you can move them around and experiment with different things as well. And that kind of opens up new strategies. So for example, if you throw a high might increase one, like Ike, on a Brave Axe on a unit who has low speed, it doesn't matter that you increase their weight so much because their speed's already terrible. So now they're just going to hit a little bit harder with their Brave Axe, and they still double because a Brave Axe always doubles in the first hit. So that would be a use case of this that you could argue bumps it up to A. And for this one, for long range sniping builds, you're not getting hit anyways. So getting the increased hit and the increased crit, you could argue that bumps this up to A. So honestly, like these are like maybe like B plus. Like I barely think they're not A because they're still good. They're still very good. None of these I would say are C or D. But yeah, definitely like and subscribe. Let me know if you think any of these should move. And I'll see you in the next one.